It's Sunday morning, and I found myself sitting in the front row of a Spanish Pentecostal church in Lawrence. It's a big church filled with song, prayer, spirit, and God. Working at the Merrimack Valley Project, a faith and community-based organization in Lawrence, fighting for justice, I found myself in church a lot. More than you might expect to find a mostly secular Jewish woman in church. This particular day, as the preacher wound down his sermon and the energy in the room settled to a simmer, he looked out at the congregation and said, "Anyone who is not a Christian, stand up." My heart skipped a beat and my palms started to sweat. Now, before I continue, in this context, Christian meant specifically someone who has accepted Jesus as their personal savior, as opposed to the way we used Christians growing up to describe some vague and amorphous percentage of the non-Jewish population. So there I was, wondering if I should sit or stand. My heart raced, and I thought about my grandparents. I wondered if they would want me to sit or stand. Stand up as a Jew and expose myself to judgment and possible discrimination, or sit and try to blend in just a little bit better. Not that blending in was really an option at the mostly Dominican church. I sat and thought about my family coming to this country after escaping the pogroms in Eastern Europe. How as a matter of survival, they left behind our language, our customs, and our tradition, believing that maybe we would be better off trying to slide into American culture with fewer jagged Jewish edges. At the end of the service, my palms still sweaty and my heart still racing, the pastor of the church, a leader I've worked with a lot, stood up to make his end of service announcements. He thanked me for visiting and, turning back to the congregation, said, "Even though Emily comes from a Jewish background, she is welcome here." I felt outed and unprotected and a little bit sick. I had sat for a reason. I think part of me was hoping that I was going to be able to work at an organization centered around faith values and still opt out of my Judaism whenever it felt uncomfortable, smoothing out my own jagged Jewish edges. But the pastor made me realize that I can't leave it at the door. It comes with me whether I want it or not, so I might as well decide to want it. Getting rid of those jagged edges came with a cost, having to give up a heritage, a history, and a peoplehood. And it's not a cost I'm willing to pay anymore. I can't genuinely do this work without being connected to my history, culture, and traditions. So I say to you today, Hineni, a word I learned this year, here I am. I can't opt out, and I don't want to. Instead, I'm planting myself firmly in the Jewish community and planted towards justice. Thank you.